You know, when you're sailing ships that rely on sails, sometimes you're going to have to go in the direction from which the wind is coming. Whether it's to reach your port or a point in which at which you're going to patrol, sometimes you got to do it. And so, in the sailing world, you do what is called tacking. Now, in this video, we're going to discuss how you actually execute tacking, not just with the skill roll, but actually with a specific maneuver of your ships, both basic wind rules and the advanced wind rules. So stick around. Stay tuned. All right. As you know, Black Seas incorporates a rule called tacking, which allows you to maneuver your ship when it starts the turn facing into the wind in order to avoid damage to the rigging, because you're going to drop 2 or more sail levels. You will do a tack test to position your ship just so it's just outside of into the wind before you decide what level of sail you're going to be at. Now, that's a pretty good simplification. It's not bad. There's nothing wrong with it. But that's kind of what I would call an uncontrolled way for you to sail into the wind. You're not necessarily relying on your skill, but you're relying entirely on the luck of the dice. Sometimes you do need to make the change of direction into the wind. For example, let's say the wind has changed, and suddenly the port or the table edge that you need to get off of is now exactly into the wind, or the point, the island that you need to reach for maybe landing a boarding party or landing a landing party, like when you try and take the fort, or if you're trying to drop off goods in like the Smuggler's Run. All of a sudden, you need to move in the direction from which the wind is coming from. You can't just sit there anchored waiting for the wind to change. You need to be able to do something. And we're going to try to discuss how you can do that without relying on the luck of the die. The other reason you might want to do this is to actually gain weather gauge on your opponent. So if your opponent is upwind of you and you're tired of him going first, you can try to tack by sailing upwind to kind of force him to end up passing you and going behind. Now all of a sudden you've got weather gauge, and now you maybe have the initiative. Again, it's a tactical situation. You have to make your mind up at the time. But these are the reasons you might want to do this. So let's talk about what is tacking first. What is tacking, the way it really works, and see kind of how to do that on the tabletop. All right, here's an illustration of what tacking really looks like. And you'll see the wind is coming in from the top, and the ship is essentially sailing in that direction by doing a zigzag pattern. This way you're not taking too far off course at any of the tacks you take. So we're going to do exactly this move on the tabletop to basically execute the same maneuver, sailing into the wind. Alright, so when you find yourself in a position where you're into the wind, or sorry, you're just outside of the wind, and you have, depending on which rule set you can use, advanced or basic, you've got some different concerns. Now, in the basic wind direction rule set, it actually is a whole lot easier to tack with your the ships that have the red turn angle. It is extremely difficult to do it with the ones with the yellow turn angles, but we'll kind of talk about that in just a second. It is basically almost impossible for the red turn angles to do attack in the advanced wind direction rules, much like it was for the yellow in the basic, and it's impossible for the yellow to do tacking like the red ones could in the basic rules under the advanced wind conditions. So this is a good skill to use as far as maneuvering your own player skill, because you can't always rely on that dice roll. The dice roll gives you a free turn before you decide what your sail level is, which is great. But if you're always failing, which, regular crews, 2 out of 3 times they're failing it, maybe you want to try to ensure you're able to do what you want to do on your terms. Maybe now if you're lucky and you do get one of those skill rolls, great, but try not to. You try not to have to. All right. We're just going to set the ship up like this for a second. We use a sail. It's a Glory mat because it has a convenient 90 and 45 degree lines on it. Now, let's take a quick look at the basic wind rule chart. So as you can see by this, it's very simple. The forward and backward, or the forward arc and rear arc of the wind direction. Okay, so you'll see that in this case, it even mentioned the text. Even though the yellow shaded areas aren't exactly shaped properly, they tell you that you use the yellow turn gauge to determine whether the ship is going into the wind or not. Okay, or is full sail. We're here talking about into the wind, and you'll notice anywhere between into the wind and behind the ship, you're able to go battle sail. So this is great for ships with the red turn angle. Not so much with the yellow. So here's what we're going to do. So we're going to assume the wind is coming directly toward the camera down these lines, and this is the 45, like a normal 45 degree arc. A regular red turn angle ship will be able to turn this far because it's going battle sail in one movement turn. Okay, so in order to execute the best tacking you can in the basic wind rules with a red ship, you're going to need to position at the end of your previous movement. You need to position the ship in such a way that the yellow turn angle is just outside or just to the one direction or the other, or just to the left in this case. I'm going to the starboard, so you want the yellow line to be just starboard of the wind direction. If I was set up this way, I'd want the ship to be set up in such a way that the yellow line of the gauge is just to the port of the wind direction. Okay, that will allow you to stay out of the wind and execute your maneuver. Now, to execute a tacking maneuver is very, very simple. So we're going to set up you can be positioned, here's right on the line, and you can be positioned up to this angle and still be outside of the wind. Okay, so you got a lot of leeway there. Okay, that's what, 15 degrees? Yeah, it's 15 degrees. So you end your turn between somewhere in that 15 degrees, and then you start your next turn. Now your next turn, I'm not going to actually move the ship forward because you don't need to see that right now. You'll take your first movement step. It'll go forward the full distance, 5 or whatever that is, for the ship and the wind conditions, and then you'll make the hardest turn to port or starboard into the wind you can. You'll do your next 5 or next movement step, and then from there you'll make your next turn, and again just to outside of being into the wind. There, you didn't have to do any tacking tests. You're good to go. Okay. The next turn, again, 5 straight forward, turn, 5 straight forward, turn, and that's all you're doing. Moving into the wind, so you're moving in a zigzag pattern, just like we saw in the illustration, and you're going up 5, turn, up 5, turn, up 5, turn, and you're doing that move. Okay, really simple. I mean, and it works. Okay. Now, if somehow you end up in a position where you need to go into the wind, you end up into the wind, and you start your turn somewhere within the wind, go ahead and make the tacking roll, and then you move it to the direction you want, and then you again, because if you're successful with the tacking roll, let's say we're like this. Not a great position to start in. So if I succeed in my tacking roll, I can go ahead and turn until I'm just out of, because I remember I'm going battle sail, and so I'm going to want to move till it's just outside of in the arc, and now I can start doing my tack, my actual maneuvering. I can't go this way because actually I could go that way. Either it doesn't necessarily really matters which direction you go, but again, you're going to be able to position your ship just outside of into the wind, and then you can start executing that tacking maneuver I just showed you. Now, the hard part is with the ships like the merchant ship or the first and second rates that have a yellow turn angle. The only way for them to be able to do this is if they actually start on the line of, and again, this is, the way the book is written, if the wind is coming within this arc, within it is, you're sailing into the wind. If it's outside of that, it is obviously not in the wind. Well, what if it's right on that line? You rule it the way you guys want. Maybe it's a die roll. Maybe you just work in favor of the player. Maybe it's always considered into the wind. Whatever you decide, stick with it. But you can see it's very, very difficult to be able to do this nice, simple zigzag with the basic rules with a yellow turn angle ship. So, to do this properly, we'll have to talk about how you do ships doing tacking in advanced wind rules, because the red turn angle ships have exactly the same problem the yellow ones do in the basic rules. So what we're talking about in the next section will apply to both ships under the advanced wind rules, and it'll apply to the yellow turn angle ships under the basic wind rules. Alright, so I kind of set up my ship again just as a placeholder here, but let's take a quick look at the advanced wind rules and see what this chart looks like. Now, the first thing you'll notice is you now have this huge 90-degree arc within which your ship is sailing into the wind, which, as we just mentioned, puts the red turn angle ships in the same predicament the yellow turn angle ships are in with the basic wind rules. Not a good position to be in. So, the other thing that's kind of disappointing, again, remember, I love the advanced wind direction rules, but the thing that's hard to get your mind around is you have to remember, anytime the wind is coming from the front half of the ship, the maximum speed you can go is light sail. So that means you'll only ever have one movement step while you're doing this tacking. So it's going to look kind of funky. Alright, so let's assume you don't make you're unsuccessful in all of your tacking rolls. So let's kind of look at what that looks like. And obviously, if you succeed in any of the tacking rolls, obviously this will go up a little bit faster. So let's set this up. Again, now we're going to be just outside of, so you can actually line the ship up so the center line's on one of the lines. We're going to just pull the bowsprit off just a hair. Okay. Now if I do a 90-degree turn, I'm still going to be into the wind because the bowsprit's going to be just into the wind. So I can't do a two-turn movement. This is going to take 3 turns to get a complete tack done. And here we are going to actually show what it looks like with the movement, because you'll need to see kind of the what happens in 3 turns. Alright, so before we start, what I'm going to do is we're going to start on this line here, and I'll put this out there as a reference. We're going to move this forward 3 movement steps, okay, of 5, because we're going to assume it's a frigate, right? So there's 1, 2, and 3. So we make it up just past this line here. Okay, so that's our reference point right now. to show the difference between the speed of doing a normal light sail move, kind of near the wind, but compare that to a tacking maneuver like we're going to do. Now remember, we're trying to do the tacking maneuver as if we had failed the skill test. Okay. All right. So we at the previous turn we end with our ship either at battle sail or light sail, either way, just outside of we make that last turn, so it's just outside of the 45-degree angle, and it doesn't have to be right on line, because it doesn't have to be that exact, because you are going to have to spend 3 turns making this. So the very first turn that you're going to be sailing, you have to immediately go to light sail. Now, because you're not going into the wind, you can't make a tack test. If the wind is coming from the front half of the ship, so it's definitely going to be light sail. So the first thing you're going to do is maneuver forward 5, and then you will make the maximum. Let's mark right there our starting line, okay? But now you're going to make the maximum 45-degree angle turn you can with the ship, okay? And of course now you are directly into the wind. Well, almost directly, but you are into the wind. There's no denying it. Okay, again, assuming first we're always failing our skill tests. If you're like me, you'll be failing a lot of them. Remember, 2/3 on a regular ship of those skill tests are failed. Alright, so the next turn you're going to be forced to go to anchor, advance up 5, and again do the maximum turn you can. Now that maximum turn still keeps you within the direction of the wind, okay? So that means on the next turn you will turn till it's just outside of the wind, okay? 3 turns, and that's how far we've gotten. We haven't even reached the halfway point to we're going straightward. So this takes longer, but again, tacking does take longer. You're actually covering more distance into the wind. You're going much slower. But again, now you're able to go up. In those 3 turns, your opponent's ship may have just passed you, and now you've got weather gauge. And so maybe now you actually want to go, you'll want to actually turn this way and start engaging him better. But assuming one need to get to that island to either land landing troops or, like in Smuggler's Run, drop off cargo, we're in a position now where we're just outside, so now we can go back to light sail. Okay. We're going to move forward our 5. Again, we're going to turn. Okay. And again, we're going to be on turn 4. We've ended here. Turn 5. We have to go to anchored, because again we failed our tacking test, and so we simply drift forward 5, and here we are on turn 5. We switch. We are now just past what our normal light sails would have taken us had we been able to travel in that direction, and now turn 6 we stay anchored and we make the rest of the turn. So we're out of arc. So it takes twice as long to get the particular distance you're traveling, okay? But this is how you'll be able to do it. Now, fortunately for us, there is the rule that allows you to tack. So let's set this back up, okay? And what if we succeed in any of those? So again, we're going to start just outside, and we're forced to go light sail, and we end up going. After our turn, we turn into the wind. Alright, so because we have the tacking skill available to us whenever we're facing into the wind, we have the chance of really accelerating how quickly we can move up the table into the wind. Because, you see, I'm going to actually make this, we're assuming the wind's coming down these straight lines. We're going to make this kind of sort of like a worst case, because I want to show you the way the rule is written and how you would actually execute a tacking. So let's say you're into the wind, you have to go to anchored. You don't want to, but you have to. Or maybe this is after your first turn step, last turn, you set yourself in this position. Now you make your skill test and you're able to tack. That's great. So now you have basically a free turn. Now, you want to go that way. So do you really want to pull just outside here, which is possible, or do you want to turn all the way till it's here? Now, the reason you have this choice is the rule is written very specifically. It says, turn the minimum amount needed to take it just out of the wind, even if this exceeds its turn angle. The only way it can exceed its turn angle, because remember, that's as far as I can go if I turn to port and I'm still into the wind. So yes, the minimum distance would be this way, but if I want to go that way, that's more than my turn angle, but I can still do the minimum distance to get me right out of the angle of the wind. So you can choose either direction. Now I want you guys to do me a favor. For the benefit of anyone who watches this video after an FAQ might come out, if they've changed that interpretation of the rule, please put that down in the comments, and I will make sure those are transferred into the description of the video, and I'll try to put up there as like a pinned comment, all that kind of stuff, to help anyone who's learning the rules. So right there we get a free move, or sorry, free turn, which allows us to stay at light sail, and then we get to move our 5, and again do that turn, and again we're going to be into the wind, but again we might succeed in that tack test, which allows us to do that turn, and then another 5. So we could be seeing ourselves go down the table much faster, because if you're successful, especially in that last move, remember it took 3 turns to complete a full 90-degree tack. Well, if you're lucky on that third one, when you were into the wind, just into the wind, if you make the check, you can turn yourself right out into the wind and pick up 5 inches on that last move. So you'll actually be moving down the table a little faster. You'll get a third move compared to failing the test every time, right? So you have a chance of doing that. Now I'm really hoping this helps you clarify how to execute a tacking maneuver with or without passing the skill test for tacking when you're actually going to the wind. So comment below, let me know if this was helpful. If you do have any questions, please put those in the comments. If I need to, I'll put another video out to clarify, but this I think covers it. To illustrate with the yellow turn angle ships, you have the same problem you do with the red, except that you're going to be in the arc longer. It might, for a yellow turn angle ship, it might take you 4 turns to get downwind, so they'll be going much more slowly. So their success, it's going to be more important for them to succeed in their tacking tests. But let's just take a look at what this looks like. So again, we'll start. We'll go ahead and start on this line here, and I'll just use, for the purposes of this, we'll go 4 turns. This is a merchant ship, so to keep it simple, we'll just go 3. So here's 3. There's 6, 9. That would be where it would be in turn 3. And this is where it would be on turn 4. Okay, so you're looking at just about almost, not quite 2 inches difference. Okay, so that's turn 4. All right, we're starting just outside of the wind. We're at light sail because that's the best we can do. We move forward 3. And we make the biggest turn we can, which is not much. All right, now again, we're assuming always failing our tests. Now, turn 2, we're stuck because we can't have to go to anchored. So we're going to go up to here. We're anchored. Okay. Turn. At the end of the turn, you'll go ahead and make your turn. Now we are just into the wind, or just to the left of the port of the wind. The next turn we're anchored, so we have to go here. We can't go forward. The next turn we're anchored, so we have to turn, and now we'll be able to do it. So that's 4 turns, we're right there. And on the 5th turn we'd be able to continue forward, because then we'll be able to go to light sail and continue 3. So it took us 4 turns to get half the distance. So instead of the red turn angle ships taking 3 turns to get half the way up, it takes the yellow angles 4 turns. So it's much, much slower. So hopefully you'll be able to successfully pass your skill test for those. Now, unfortunately, some of the merchant ships are written to be inexperienced, and so they're only going to be passing on 6s. So don't get your hopes up for merchant ships. But of course, your first and second rates, they will be able to pass those tests more frequently. Again, 1/3 of the time. Unless you go vet, then it's only half. So hopefully this has been an eye-opener on how you can actually maneuver upwind, hopefully getting weather gauge on your opponent, and maybe getting closer to that island you need to land troops on or cargo on. Alright, hope this was useful, enjoyable, and even entertaining at times. Please share, like, and subscribe, especially just hit that like button. That will help the channel grow. And if you can, share this with the friends or groups that are doing Black Seas. The more we can get this information out there, the more fun everybody else will have. It's good information. It's kind of rules explanation, and it's even a little bit of tactics. The more information you have, the more fun you'll have playing the game. Alright, see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.